Well, hey, thanks for taking some time. You know, obviously we know each other through training and whatnot, but I also know that on social media, you like to refer to yourself as just a parking attendant or something along those lines, just a parking attendant that became a plumber. Right. And it got me thinking, and you post these pictures. I'm going to have to see if you can't send me a few so we can put that on the post where we put this out here. But I see pictures of you and your friends eating pizza out of trash. And
for the record, I was the only one eating trash. That was all me. They were just watching.
Yeah, and for those that are only listening, don't think it's like a sad image of Mark eating. No, he's enjoying the humor of, hey, look, I'm eating pizza out of trash and I'm 20. So yeah, but that's kind of where I want to start. Well, actually, before we start there, let's give some folks some perspective that don't know you. Tell them a little bit about your ownership of your businesses, how many you have. Give them a little bit of a background, and then let's go to the humble beginnings.
But this is it's really funny because I know each one of my business units intimately. Mm-hmm. But if you ask me about numbers combined, I don't know. So I'm going to give you a guess. I'm the majority owner of about 24 Roto-Rooter franchises that are grouped in about 10 business units. Of the 10 business units, I'm the majority owner of about 9. I partner with a fella on another 1 or 2. I guess technically it's 3, maybe it's 11 business units now. But they're all Roto-Rooter franchises. We're full service plumbing and drain cleaning. Yeah, I don't know. You want to know what we do in sales? It's probably.
If you want to, I think for the humble beginnings, it's kind of a fun contrast to hear where you're at now. So 24 franchises or units, if you will. Yeah. What are you guys doing roughly in annualized sales, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, the typical business unit does about $2 million. So if I have about 10, to give you an idea. We do about $20 million in total. The average business unit does 2, but I've got one that's pushing 4 or 5 this year.
That's awesome.
But all my businesses are in generally small, mid-sized cities. Right. Canton, Ohio, Medina, Ohio, Muncie, Indiana. I'm a Cleveland boy. Nobody can hold that against me. I'm a Cleveland boy. So, you know, I was 9 years old when our river caught on fire, and that's when they started making fun of us nationally. And so it puts a little chip on the shoulder, but it also has empowered me to understand how to work in some of these smaller cities, mid-sized cities, as I call them. And honestly, a number of them are somewhat economically depressed. But, you know, I think subconsciously I knew that I wanted to provide good quality service to these cities that may not otherwise get it. And that's become my niche. I kind of backed into it, but I really enjoy it.
So you're from Cleveland, and yes, I think a lot of folks know about the river being caught on fire, but I don't think a lot of people know that one of the largest companies in America, and I think they were the largest for quite a while, actually got started right there in Cleveland. And I'm sure you know who it is, but do you? I'm just curious.
I think we're talking about Standard Oil.
Yep.
Are you talking about Standard Oil and that little guy named Rockefeller? And
that's him.
You know, we invented breaking up monopolies, man. Yeah, that was the heyday of Cleveland, and we had Millionaires Row, and we were maybe like the 6th largest city in America, and growing. And then about the time my dad moved into Cleveland from St. Paul, Minnesota, our fortunes dipped. We lost the World Series that we should have won, got swept. And, you know, quite frankly, we didn't make it back to the World Series until the year my dad died. So I think he was the bad luck charm, man.
Oh, man. How about that? All right. So a little history right there. And I only know that because if you read the book Titan, it's a great read, but it spends a lot of time in Cleveland in the early days. So it's a really good book. So let's talk more about you, though. you do refer to yourself as a parking attendant. So what is the story there? Because obviously that was something about that time in your life was important to you, because it's a common theme that you go back to and share good memories and good times from.
Well, I was a teenager when I first started working, and that fellow behind me over my shoulder is my grandfather, my dad's dad, and he used to tell me to save him my nickels, save him my dimes, and save him my pennies in that order. It's important to remember that order. So I started working, and I think I developed a different personality. I became almost schizophrenic. There was little Marky at school, and then there was this new person, Mark, at work. And eventually I became more of a risk taker at work, probably an extrovert at work and somewhat introverted back at school. And very, very proud that I could meet other people outside of my family and work with them, integrate with them. And it's not that we did tremendous, fantastic things, but I learned a great deal about life working the mean streets of Cleveland, downtown Cleveland, Ohio in the 70s. So, I have only fond memories of that. I'm sure we had some bad times, but, there was sort of, as a person, as a human, sort of coming of age, not sexually, of course, but just learning life. I learned down there.
Yeah, the 70s are a totally different time, for sure. It was looked back on I was born in 79, so I have zero memory of it. But those were the movies that my mom and dad were watching. So I was growing up seeing these movies, and it was interesting transitioning from the 50s to the free love of the 60s to experimenting with new music, new fashion. I mean, it kind of has its own footprint or thumbprint on society, if you will. So that's interesting. Now, you've mentioned your grandfather a couple times. Let me get his name. I want to make sure I write his name down.
Well, his real name was Ivan, but once he came to America, he went by John. And his middle name was made up. He just put an E because he thought it looked good. So John E. Stepowoy.
He just made it up.
That's my understanding.
That is cool. So tell me a little bit more about the influence of your grandfather and even the influence of your dad. And what I really want to know is just about people that have been like a huge influence in your life, and how do you think they've affected you? Like, what are some very particular ways that they've guided you towards what you're doing today?
Well, my dad and his dad were flat out just working men, and they worked and they provided and they did what they had to do. I know in my family with my mother, she sometimes get frustrated. My dad would have to go down to work and save the day, put a fire out, what have you. But I know that I got my work ethic from them.
What'd your dad do?
There's no doubt about it. Pardon me?
What did your dad do? What was his work?
My father worked in a chemical factory. It's called Harshaw Chemical in Cleveland, Ohio. And he was responsible for maintaining the tool crib and maintaining the parts they needed to keep the factory running. So if a valve went out and they didn't have a spare in inventory, on occasion, my father and I would hop in a car, drive someplace, pick up a valve, and take it down to the plant. And I know that he was he was on management. He was the lowest rung, humble manager, but he was still an important part of the whole process. And it was kind of fun to see that. And I think I picked up a little bit on that.
That's cool. So doing whatever he had to do to make things happen. Is your dad still around? Is he still alive today?
No, Dad checked out in 1995. I started to get in the trades in 94, and I just started to understand what I needed to do, and Dad left us about a year later.
So you started getting in the trades in 94. Your dad died a year after that. How old were you in 94, Mark?
I started in September 6, 1934. That's my first day at Roto-Rooter. I worked at a corporate location, so I was 34 years old.
Okay, so what did you do with the corporate? Were you actually in the field? What work were you doing for Roto-Rooter?
I'm a fraud. I never worked in the field. It's probably one of my big career regrets. I was hired to be the general manager of what was most likely the worst corporate store in the company at the time, 1994. It was a group of sad sacks, non-believers, poor producers. Customer service didn't mean anything. It was just there were a few good people in there, but Cleveland Roto-Rooter never amounted to anything by 1994.
And obviously, it sounds like they probably had a story to tell after you were done.
We did okay. I was there for a little under 5 years. In that time, we were branch of the year a couple times, and I know I took sales from $1.4 million to just under $5 million in about 4 years.
That's awesome, man. Branch of the year. Okay, so you did that until about 99 or so. Is that about the time that you started getting into being an owner, or what was the transition for you?
It was easy. They fired me. So
did they?
That's the story of my career. Yeah, it happens.
Hey, you fired me like twice that I can recall, Mark.
No, man. I just put you on hiatus. You're on hiatus. Come on.
No, I tell people I got a thick skin. I get fired all the time, but thankfully I get hired more than I get fired.
Well, I've been fired every time I've been fired. Almost everything, seemingly bad like that in my career has always just opened up a new door and a new chapter. So
absolutely,
I was fired in 1999, and it was devastating because I wasn't prepared. I thought I was doing what I was going to do forever, and I loved it, and really respected my boss up until about the time he fired me. But we worked past that, and he's now the president of Roto-Rooter, and we're on fine terms. So what did I do? I'm a proud guy. I wanted to kill him, so I bought a company in 1999. Right after I got fired, I bought a company because I wanted to beat them up in the marketplace. After about a month, I realized with my 5 children and me still wanting to be daddy, going to be the soccer coach and going to violin rehearsals, etc., I knew that I could not do both. So I sold my company to a consolidator just a few months later, and I went to work for ARS Rescue-Rooter for the next 10 years. Largely starting a branch in Cleveland, but for a while I was promoted to a sales manager capacity, which is kind of funny because anybody who knows me knows I'm sales stupid, including yourself. And I got to work under Jack Tester. I think we both know Jack Tester, so that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So you worked.
So I didn't start.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I didn't start working for myself until ARS fired me. You see, but. So I made it about 5 years with Roto-Rooter, and then ARS had me for about 10, and that's when I started to go off on my own.
Now, why did ARS fire you?
I didn't love them anymore. It was just time, part of this podcast is helping people develop themselves. At least 2 times, if not 3 in my career, I didn't have the courage or the maturity to quit. So I languished until they fired me. And certainly at ARS, it was a mercy killing. And that's not to knock them. There's some fine people there. It was just time for me to grow. And I wasn't going to be able to grow the way I needed to there. And so no hard feelings whatsoever.
Well, that's good for you that you've got that perspective. That's excellent. So in 2009, roughly speaking, you decided you were going to jump back into the water, and got about 15 years separation from Roto-Rooter. Is that when you bought your first Roto-Rooter franchise?
Right before I left ARS, I bought a little franchise in Canton, Ohio, and I bought it, honestly, this sounds funny, I bought it. My sister was about 50 years old at the time, and she didn't have a college education, and she needed a better job than what she could get. So I bought the Canton franchise with her. We put some retirement money together, and that was supposed to be her gig. She was just going to run the Canton, Ohio franchise. I was going to keep working at ARS, and hopefully she'd make enough money so she could retire. And Canton started doing well. And I discovered that these things I've been doing for other people, I could do for me. And that's about the time after 6 months, a year of doing both. That's about the time I fell out of love with ARS.
Gotcha. I got it. So little story of maybe two masters in that scenario. Hey, okay. So this is something that I don't think it's on any of my notes, but it's something that I knew in my back of my mind I wanted to talk to you about. I've witnessed a couple things about you. One is your outside persona can be a little bit like bronze. It's ready to be soldered. It's rough. But your heart is to do things for people. It's like, I'm going to bite your head off. But really, you love people very deeply, and you evidence that because you put your time and your money in people. I didn't know you did this with your sister, but I see you do it with your technicians. And so it's just a natural, kind of transition. Why are you so damn gruff when you're so nice?
It's in the water here, man. I don't know. Let's blame Cleveland. I don't know.
Thing?
I think no, not really. I think I don't know. But I tell you what, the next time I'm in therapy, I'll find out. How's that?
You'll ask him. It's like, hey, this punk told me I was mean but nice at the same time. What do I do with that?
I think it's as you know, I'm hearing impaired. And this is just my concept. To control conversation, I think I like to put people on their heels, and therefore I own the conversation. And so I beat you upside the head, and then I have control of the information flow. That's just a theory. Is that, or I'm just a bad person at heart? I don't know. But I do passionately like to see my people succeed. There's no doubt about that. That's one of the favorite things of the industry.
Oh yeah, well you evidence that through what you do for your people with software training, all of it. I've seen that myself. How long have you been hearing impaired, by the way? Is that your whole life, or is that newer for you?
I would get earaches when I was a little kid. So in the wintertime, I could hardly go outside. My ears would bleed, and through time, I developed, I think, scar tissue, and it's irreparable. I think I've been hearing disabled since high school, maybe junior high school, but I could fake my way through it. I could, if I couldn't virtually read your mind, I certainly could read your lips, and I made do with loss. I took French class for like 5 years. I didn't learn anything, and I think it's because I couldn't pick up the nuanced sounds. So I'll see a French word, and I'll be able to pronounce it properly. Bourbonnais, Illinois, some people call it Bourbonnais. It's not. It's Bourbonnais. It's French. Beloit, Wisconsin is not Beloit. You don't pronounce the T. It's French. So I learned some things, but nuanced sound, it didn't work for me.
Do you think that that disability caused you to be maybe a little bit more observationally attuned than some other people?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I don't read a lot in terms of books. I read a few, and I'm reading one on Eagle right now. Imagine that. But I read people. I read people in situations, and now that I'm 60, I probably do it better than I'll ever do it. For the balance of my life.
Got it. Well, that's interesting, and that certainly gives me some insights. I appreciate that. Hey, let's talk a little bit about RRFA. and educate me a little bit here, because I think I still don't quite understand the difference between this. This sounds so terrible, but I don't know that I quite understand what's the difference between the Roto-Rooter Franchise Association and Roto-Rooter franchise, because there is a difference, right?
Absolutely. So I'll start off for you because I like you. Roto-Rooter was founded by a fellow named Samuel Blank, and all he wanted to do was sell and license his machines. So that's what he did back in the Depression, and that evolved into a franchise system. And every Roto-Rooter business unit was a franchise up until a company started to consolidate them. Chemed out of Cincinnati bought the system from Sam's successors, and they started to buy individual units and run them corporately. So those are corporately run stores. I only deal in franchises, the ones I own. So there's a group of us. Actually, there's more of us in terms of units than there are corporately owned units. And to help ourselves, to develop ourselves, and to help us negotiate with our friends at Chemed, we formed the Roto-Rooter Franchise Association. So the Franchise Association is a group of independent franchise owners who work together. And I want to go on record as saying we have a wonderful relationship with our friends in Cincinnati from corporate, and we got a nice long-term deal with them, and our relationship with them has been great. So it's not an adversarial relationship. It doesn't need to be. We're just looking to make ourselves better.
That makes sense. I have a friend who owns several CPRs, the cell phone repairs. It's a little new franchise business. And now that kind of connects to me, because I know they have an association, and it's a very friendly association, but it's almost like a union, for lack of a better term. I don't know if that's an ugly word with you, but the way that theirs works is it's almost like a union for their franchise owners. It's their collective power and their collective voice when they talk to the corporate world. Is that a good description, or is that not so much of a good description?
No, it's a good description, but we have a nice contract with the corporate world. So that's not as much an issue right now. Maybe 6 years from now or 14 years, I don't know when the contract's up. Maybe I'll sing a different tune. But for the most part, at this point, we just work together to make ourselves stronger, and we do work with corporate on marketing items, that sort of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. So we were going to be at y'all's Hawaii event, and COVID, that son of a gun, messed that up for all of us. But we'll be out there next year. And John worked on. Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to it. There's like a fight amongst us as to who all's going. So, but John got us on there, your son. So I was really thankful for that. So I want to ask a question specifically about RRFA, because we're starting to talk to those people, and we thank you and John like opening that door. I really appreciate that. Give us something that's been really beneficial about that group. So, and right now you can just talk to your RRFA brothers, because I'm going to make sure that we get it in front of them. Give a shout out to them, something that is like a real benefit, and also what is something that the RRFA members aren't taking advantage of? Because it seems like in almost every collective, there's these great benefits, but there's usually a benefit that smart guys like you are using, and the other guys just aren't. For whether it's lazy or they don't know about it, they're not doing it, but they should.
Well, in no particular order, the first thing comes to mind I want to talk about is there's a number of franchise owners that are they're sort of afraid to show their cards, So they need help, but they're afraid to say they need help on a particular subject, so they keep to themselves. If they can break through that and perhaps not be so proud and be a little bit more open-minded and willing to take that risk of looking, in their mind, stupid, not my mind, but in their own mind, they can get better, stronger, bigger, faster. For me, when I started to buy franchises, I didn't know there was a RRFA. I had no idea. So everything I did, I did by myself. And even though it wasn't a very big enterprise, it's only at the top, brother. It's fun to be able to turn to somebody and say, what do you use for dispatch software? At one point, I bought Champaign, Illinois. We were booking calls and putting the calls in an Excel spreadsheet. And then I kept adding columns, and the Excel spreadsheet became my dispatch software, my payroll. It became my PO log, and it worked. But if I had been in the RRFA, I would have learned what software most people had used, and I'd have used it much, much, much earlier. So, the only thing you're ever going to get out of anybody's association is it's directly proportional to what you put in and how much you're willing to spend of yourself. The money's nothing. It's the time, the effort, it's the emotional investment, it's investing of yourself. It's willing to look. I hate using the stupid word because it sounds so bad, but it's if you don't know, you don't know.
That's right.
I'm not too proud to let people know I don't know. 30 years ago, probably wouldn't have said anything, but this old man, he doesn't have any problem saying, I don't have a clue, help me. I love doing it. I find there's people like you and other people on here who know so much more than I do about so many different subjects. I love stealing from all of you.
Well, still away. And I appreciate you saying that. And I'll tell you, the way that I really learned that lesson was when I became a manager of other men that were older than me, oddly enough. And it was at one of my first training organizations, super talented individual. And someone had asked him a question and he didn't know the answer to it. And this person wasn't trying to bait him or be competitive. And you could tell he was just genuinely asking. And all he had to say was, I don't know. Let me go find out. And I'll talk to you later today. But he didn't do that. He bullshitted for 10 minutes and lost the credibility of the room. I was like, oh, wow. You know what? People know when you don't know. Just say you don't know. You don't know everything. Move on, go find out, and then come back.
But younger people that listen to this learn that lesson faster. If you can learn those kind of lessons faster, you're going to move along the learning curve better.
Yeah.
And you're going to enjoy yourself.
Absolutely. But you got to let go of that ego that you were talking about. Can't be concerned about looking stupid or not being the smartest guy in the room and all that. So awesome. I remember meeting you. And I remember talking to you on the phone for the first time and you coming and hanging out with us in Austin, but I don't remember how you heard about us. I'm going to ask a few, set focus questions. I hope you don't mind, but how did you hear about us?
I was thinking about that the past couple of days. I'm pretty certain that I stumbled across you on Facebook. I really believe if it wasn't on Facebook, it was something digitally. And, I had used a different provider for sales training. We're not going to talk about the shortfalls, but I wasn't satisfied. And I knew there was something better. And I knew there was something better, and I knew there was somebody that would bring more integrity to the process. And I saw you, and I said, no, that's not it. No, I'm kidding.
No, I don't think you're too far.
I saw you.
You vetted me pretty hard.
Oh, dude, you got to have fun, brother. You got to have fun. You seem to have the integrity that I needed, and the honesty and the clarity. We knew mutual people. I do believe either you worked with or for Jack Tester at one point in time, or at least you know of Jack. There were just a lot of common themes, and I never heard anything bad about you. You can't lift weights very well. I've learned that, but
I keep trying.
You occasionally get a gruesome haircut, but it was off the internet, and you hit all the right buttons.
I appreciate that. And I do appreciate that. And, you know, and frankly, Mark, you've made us better. You know, I'm not ashamed to admit that you've given me some, back of the woods shed conversations, and I needed them. But, you know, that's what honest partnerships do. If we're not hitting every mark and you tell us, we can make it better. And if you don't tell us, then you fire us, and that kind of sucks. So I appreciate you saying those things, and I hope I've always demonstrated that. And I'll always do my best too, with our people. So thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Do you mind if I ask you, and I'd love to quote you on this, is there something, whether it's a thing or a mentality, has there been anything from us as a company that you're like, I mean, honesty and integrity, those were such kind words, but really, how are we helping your people? You know, is there something that we're doing for your people? I had a chance to work with them some a while back on a special project, great guys, but have you seen an improvement in their life since they've been working with us off and on?
Well, you know what I find is that I have like 120 employees, so I'm just going to guess maybe 80 of them are technicians, just use a round number. And there isn't one trainer, there isn't one consultant that is going to resonate with all 80. It's just not going to happen.
That's right.
And there's a core number, whatever that number is, that can be reached, and you seem to reach them. And so I guess as I refine my training, you don't give up on the others. There's still basic training you do, but there's some that are just going to click and they're going to advance and they're going to want more. And, you know, right here, I'm in Medina, Ohio. My Medina franchise is on the first floor. I've got about 40% of the guys that you really resonated with, you really click with. And probably the place where it manifests itself most is presenting options to customers. And, you know, they're really pretty humble guys, but they are like tigers in a way in terms of following the process of hearing people and presenting options and helping them choose an option that's best for them. Sounds simple, but I have 80 guys. I'd be lying to you if I said 80 guys that were really good at it. But I think that's probably one of the things that strikes through with a good number of folks from my company, from your training.
I appreciate that. And you're right. And, you know, we know that as well. It's an interesting thing. It's everybody wants to have something that makes them money. So everybody wants a job. Some people also want the career. Now, even those that want the career, they sometimes want the career their way. And I mean, I'm not stupid. I 100% understand what we represent. We represent moving the dials when it comes to, you know, money and key performance indicators. We do it through utmost of integrity, but that doesn't mean that if I'm, you know, just fundamentally, just at my grassroots, a person that just absolutely hates that no matter what. Some of those people you can't get to. All you can do is not turn them off to you. Let them go, you know, that guy's being honest. I'm still not going to do that, but at least I know he's not a crook. And sometimes that's the best you can accomplish. Hey, let's move off of that. I really appreciate that, though. I want to get your input, talking to all the business owners out there. And you said something that is actually very common. Really successful people that don't come from the field. It's one of the most common things on the planet is to find someone that's got an accounting background and they crush it in the trades, or they have a operations background working in manufacturing, and because they understand systems and procedures, they crush it. So this is what I want to ask you. I want to ask you about what are some of the things that you think are advantages that you are implementing. You got multiple locations. Obviously, communication's got to be a challenge. You must have found some way to fix that. So what are some of your advantages that you've put in place, and how would you advise your peers to do that themselves? And that's going to be the last little section of questions that I'd like to kind of unpack with you.
So are these advantages I had because I wasn't in the field, or
not necessarily because you weren't in the field? Just things that you're doing that's working really well. And maybe it was because you're not out of the field. Maybe it's because you think differently. But what are you currently doing that's not theory? It's real practical and you would advise your peers you should do this too?
Probably, that's a pretty deep question. Probably because I'm in 7 different states, and most of my business units are what I would call small, a couple million in sales or less. I got to look at the organizational design. Somebody's got to be in charge, man. And each place has an ops manager. It's kind of a hybrid general manager, but somebody's got to be in charge. And then we just replicate the processes that we've learned and refined in other places. So if somebody sold me a franchise in Topeka, Kansas, and I don't know who's in Topeka, Kansas, but yeah, I'd get it up and running in a couple of weeks. I'd just do the same thing I do in Champaign, Illinois, or Springfield. I have infinite belief that the people are there. The people are there. And you just have real good processes and find real good people. Not coming out of the field, I guess we probably have pretty good systems, and they're pretty well understood. It's funny, for the peers, some of the guys on here, if it's flooding outside and storming, it's horrible, and that drives our business sometimes. I'm not compelled to hop in my truck and drive and clean some sewers. I'll kill somebody, man. I could do it, by the way, but that's our secret. I've never had to work in the business because I'm mechanically not so good, I've always worked on the business, and I just look for better, smarter, faster ways, and then replicate and steal from everybody. Then that's another advantage to have an RRFA. It's an advantage to have a relationship with your company. Is there's so many good ideas. I don't do HVAC. I have been trained. I took a training program. I can't even remember the name of the company. Service Experts. I trained with Service Experts, and for whatever reason didn't manifest in a position. But I love rubbing elbows with the HVAC world because they've had historically a better command on the sales process. And I love to learn from those guys, and then steal and implement.
Got it. Well, I mean, that's great tips. I certainly appreciate you sharing. I'm going to get this out in all the different places because I think anyone that listens to this can benefit from it for sure. So I really appreciate you, Mark. Thank you so much. Is there any closing thought or any last thing you'd like to make sure that you get out there before we sign off?
Well, I got to remind everybody, save them your nickels, save them your time, and save them your pennies. But you got to spend money to invest in your business. I'm 60 years old, and I get very reflective on my life. And you might have some younger people here. I was like 16 years old, and I had a certificate of deposit for $10,000 on money I made at $2 per hour.
Wow.
And it's funny, though, this isn't for me to brag, but I can directly trace that money to not having any college debt when I graduated college. And I can trace that money to having a good down payment on my first house. And I can transfer all that money to where I'm at today because of what I did in my youth. So that's one thing I want to throw out there. Two, because I thought about this, be prepared to learn from anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When I was young in the business in '94, my plumbers tried changing the rates and charging more than what our rates were. And I quickly wrote that off as cheating, immoral, blah, 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 blah. And I guess if the rules were the rules, it was. But if I were a little bit more introspective at that time, I would have raised the rates, man. We were cleaning sewers for $120 when we could have gotten $250. We left money on the table. We could have used that money to invest in ourselves and bought better equipment. It's just funny. I was so proud back in 1994 criticizing these guys, and maybe they deserved part of that, but I could have learned from them. Mm-hmm. So you can learn from so many different people. Don't lose sight of that.
Well, I love that you said
that. And begrudgingly.
What's that?
Be willing to change your mind. be willing to change your mind. I hate to admit it, but yeah, I've got a young partner in a couple of my locations, and he'll come up with a good idea. And because I'm old and resistant, I'll say no. And we both know, but for the next week, this is all I'm going to think about. And there's a good chance I'm going to come back and change my mind. I admit it. So
he's going to plant a seed that's going to grow. Yeah. You know what?
If you're old, pardon me?
I very much appreciate what you said about having $10,000 at 16. I did not. I didn't get smart with money until I graduated college because I didn't have that example. I was working hard through high school. I just wasn't smart with money. But I found Dave Ramsey, and he convinced me when I was making $30,000 a year that I would be able to retire a millionaire if I was smart. So I bought into it at 21. And from the age of 21, now I'm 41, 20 years, I can track 20 years of fiscal responsibility. And I can share with you that, from that age, I did have the same story. I can tell you where every dollar went. And it's just amazing what happens when people get disciplined. I think our culture, and it's really kind of bothersome to me in a lot of ways, especially for the young people, but our culture is so addicted to, rocket ship results. They want to go from 0 to 20,000 in the atmosphere in seconds. And there are people that do that, but that's not how life is for most people. And it's not how life is for most businesses either. So, there are businesses that can do it, but if you can go to the atmosphere, then you've got a tank full of fuel, and that is a representation of a large investment. But I appreciate that because I very much believe in the discipline and the patience to do it the right way. And it sounds like that's what you've always done.
That might be why I identify being a parking attendant, because that was a parking attendant that wasn't getting a lot of money, but humbly squirreled it away and lived within his means. And it just sets me back to the foundation that has enabled me to enjoy what I enjoy.
It's awesome.
Next thing you got to teach me how to retire. We both know how to save a dollar and be fiscally responsible. Somebody's got to teach me how to retire. That's another podcast, brother.
We'll have to talk about that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that. I'll tell you what's going through my brain in all sincerity. I'm like, I'm putting back so much money every year in the stock market, and my personal business is outpacing anything in the stock market. I'm sitting here going, I wonder if Mark wants another financial partner because I believe in his business better than I do the Dow right now, for damn sure. So, hey, but that's a conversation for another time. I really appreciate your time, Mark. Thank you so much.
Hey, I had a blast. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.